Okay. All right, 7 o'clock. We'll get started on our regular Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 council meeting. We'll mix it up a little bit this time, and we'll do roll call first.
Sean Lanier.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Brandy Bailey. Here. Jim Schrader.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll start our invocation with Pastor Burford, and then Councilman Kerr will do our flag salute.
Shall we pray? Our loving God, we thank you for our community and for those who serve us here, and we thank you for their service and pray your blessing upon them. Thank you for this Thanksgiving season when our community will come together in many ways and give thanks unto you. Thank you for our schools and our businesses, our guests, those who pass through. We pray for all the businesses and all the different activities. There are many volunteers, and we ask your blessing upon them. Be with those now who set before us and deliberate the affairs of the city. May you give them guidance and strength and wisdom. May you give them unity of thought and help them continually to look out for the welfare and benefit of this community. Again, we thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. For approval of the agenda, I would just like to suggest we add an executive session for 15 minutes as item 13, which is on the end of the agenda, for personnel matter for non-elected personnel. 15 minutes would involve the governing body.
I'll move we do that.
Okay. So we'll add that on there. Okay. Could I get a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
George? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and second. Jim?
I second.
Very good. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, awards presentations. We have a new employee and the swearing in of a new police officer. Dana?
In council, it is always exciting to introduce a new employee, more exciting when we get to swear in a new police officer for the city. Tonight we will be swearing in Judah Kidd. He comes to us with great experience. We think he's going to be a good fit. He has been in the United States Marine Corps. He served about 3.5 years and served in Okinawa, Japan. So he brings a great deal of experience to us. He's worked in agriculture and construction. He's attended Wichita Area Technical College, and we're excited to have him come on board.
Okay. All right, we'll start the swearing in. If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character,
my integrity, my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable for our actions.
and others accountable for our actions.
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Kansas,
and the state of Kansas,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we have nobody signed up for public forum. Staff reports. Before we start that, I'd just like to say one thing. Just a reminder, unless you were maybe going to mention on December 4th, the holiday Christmas tree lighting is here at City Hall building at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Okay, very good. I just want to get that out as we start the meeting. Thank you. Go ahead, Sean.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor-elect and council. Just a couple minor updates this evening. First of all, the downtown district request for proposal deadline was this past Friday, the 19th. The city received submissions and is in the process of coordinating a meeting with the selection committee, which is comprised of 4 council members and 2 local residents who expressed interest in helping select the best firm for the downtown development. Also on the dais, there's a picture of a fire hydrant that's in front of the City Administration Center that is painted the colors of their flag. We were going to send you a note to look at it on your way in tonight, but obviously with it getting darker earlier, we printed you off a picture. We ask if you don't mind, just please give us your honest feedback as to whether you like it or not. Public Works is about to start inspecting and exercising hydrant within the city, and if council is supportive of the new look, they would like to paint them all accordingly at the same time. As far as calendar updates, the mayor-elect also already had mentioned that the Community Relations Board is Christmas tree lighting celebration is scheduled for Saturday, December 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. here at the City Administration Center. There will be cookies and hot chocolate as well as Santa taking pictures with the kiddos. The CRB is working with the local schools to try and arrange for carolers as well. The night will culminate with lighting of the new 26-foot tall tree here in the center circle drive in front of the City Administration Center. Earlier that day, also on the 4th of December, Sedgwick County Health Department is hosting a Park City COVID-19 vaccine incentive clinic at the Senior Center. It is from 2 to 5:30 p.m. at the Senior Center. They are offering incentives for those that are receiving their first dose of a vaccine, as well as those that are receiving extra will also receive a limited run t-shirt. So that's at the Park City Senior Center, Saturday the 4th from 2 to 5:30 p.m. On Friday, December 10th, the city will be hosting the K254 Corridor Development Association here at the City Administration Center. The association is made up of various cities, counties, and school districts, as well as other regionals, organizations, and businesses to advocate to the county, state, and national level for safety improvements and new development along the K254 corridor. And then finally, the last calendar update is the employee Christmas party is scheduled for Friday, December 17th. It will be from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock here at the City Administration Center. The holiday luncheon is our opportunity to get together, celebrate those employees' years of experience as we honor their service, and it is invited for council and city retirees to join us as well. In addition to the traditional theme and format, the committee responsible for coordinating is also wanting to include an ugly sweater competition this year, and we'll be looking to the council members to act as the judge, so please keep that in mind. Pending any questions, that's all I have, sir.
Ben?
Yeah, concerning the fire hydrants, I noticed that, about a week or so ago when I was out here, I think they looked great. I like the fact that it incorporates our flag colors, and I think it's a good option just to get rid of that red and bring something that looks Park City. So myself, I would be very supportive of this.
Thank you, sir.
George Capps?
I just got one question. Is the fire department okay with this?
Yes, sir, we have checked it out with Sedgwick County Fire Department. They're okay with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tom?
I just wanted to mention the fact that a couple meetings ago, we elected to give $5,000 to 254 Coalition.
Yes, sir.
We attend that, but we are not involved with the 254 as a touch. But at the SCAC meeting in front of all the legislators 2 weeks ago, we were recognized for donating that $5,000.
Yes, sir.
And they brought up that we are part of it, and yeah, we benefit from 254, but we were not a city that was on 254 is what they brought up.
Yes, sir, we are a member of the committee,
Right.
although we are not technically on
Correct.
the highway itself.
But they
Yes, sir.
gave us an attaboy for kicking in some money for that study.
Yes, sir.
And we're actually going to host a meeting here as well, right?
That's what the meeting is on December 10th. There should be about 40 people representing cities, counties, school districts, businesses, developments
Great.
along the way. So it's a good chance for them to see Park City.
Yeah, the 10th. Okay. No further discussion on that. Then consent agenda. I would entertain a motion. Jim?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion, and Ben?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, new business. Sean, item 6.
Yes, sir. This is discuss and consider the approval of design and construction engineering contracts for paving, off-site paving, sanitary sewer, water, stormwater drainage, and a hike and bike trail for Ironstone Additions. Ironstone Addition is located west of Hillside and south of 69th Street North. The developer, which is Elite USA LLC, presented petitions for all 5 of these back in June, and they were approved by the council subject to receiving the required letter of credit, which the developer has done recently. Attached are the associated contracts from K.E. Miller Associates for the design and construction engineering, whereas paving is outlined as $62,000. Off-site paving is outlined as $51,000. Sanitary sewer, $28,000. Water, $15,600. Stormwater drainage, $21,600. And then the hike and bike trail is $28,000. The fiscal impact, it is authorized, funded via temporary financing, followed by long-term general obligation bonds, and staff recommends approval.
Ben?
Yeah, Doug, I actually need to ask. So in this development that is going in there on where Elite USA Construction owns property, my new employer and chair of the board is the realtor for that development. Do I need to abstain in this situation?
Your new employer is the realtor for
The development for Elite USA.
Elite
yes.
USA, and this is,
For his development area. Elite USA's development
these
area.
these are engineering contracts with K.E. Miller?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I just want to make sure if I need to or not.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, then, if I don't need to, I'm going to move to approve and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute contracts with K.E. Miller Engineering, PA, in an amount not to exceed $206,200 to be paid by temporary financing, followed by GO bonds.
George Glover?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Tom?
I'll be abstaining on this because of an appearance of conflict of interest. There is no conflict, but I just think it would be best.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
7-0-1. Motion passes. Item 7, Sean?
Yes, sir. Discuss and consider the approval of WSP contract amendment for the design and engineering of the 61st and Broadway intersection project. In November of 2018, council approved a contract with WSP Engineering for design services of 61st Street and Broadway intersection to the West Valley Center floodway project. The intersection reconstruction is part of KDOT project number 087N-0691-01, and the reconstruction of 61st Street consists of a 3-lane curb and gutter section with underground storm sewer, bike path, and sidewalk from Broadway westward to near the west city limits. Since then, council has approved 3 amendments for an intersection control evaluation, updating the intersection design, and adjusting the project limits and making adjustments necessary to Newcastle Street. The project was bid by KDOT back in July and awarded to Kansas Paving with an anticipated construction date starting late February or next year. However, the original contract did not include any design services during construction, and although Trans Systems will be providing construction engineering and inspection, some involvement and functions will be required from WSP as the original engineer design. It will be required throughout the construction, such as general project management, RFI response, shop drawing reviews, and so attached is amendment number 4, which is structured on an as-needed, as-requested basis with a not-to-exceed amount fee. The proposed limit from WSP is $67,696.99, which represents a 1.88% of the overall contractor's bid. So before you is a contract amendment in that amount. Council previously determined that fees would be paid for out of the capital projects fund. Staff recommends approval.
Looking for a motion or a second. Brandy?
I make a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 4 with WSP in the amount not to exceed $67,697 to be paid out of the capital projects fund.
Do we have a motion? Tom?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Seeing no more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, item 8. D.
Good evening. During the October 26th council meeting and working toward council's direction to purchase new software to replace the Encode 9 software, staff presented 2 proposals for advisory services to assist in that process. One proposal was from Baker Tilly and one was from Gfoa. Staff recommended Gfoa due to the much lower cost and their reputation and experience in working with cities. As we reported, Gfoa has indicated the typical cost of the implementation phase for a city our size ranges from $40,000 to $75,000. So their proposal includes a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000 for that particular phase. Therefore, based on the city's specific needs, there is a chance we may have to pay the full not-to-exceed contract amount that is on tonight's agenda, but please realize there's also a chance we may not. So it may not be quite as expensive, but we don't know that at this point. During the 4 weeks since that October 26th council meeting, staff has been looking into whether the city should begin an RFQ process for these services. Based on council's direction, staff has had discussions with the City of Wichita purchasing staff to obtain additional information. They were not able to provide an example of a previous RFQ or RFI for this type of service for Park City to use, but they did provide some other information, which included the names of 3 government entities to contact. City Administrator Sean Fox contacted each of those entities, but none of them actually completed the RFQ process. Wichita also provided a computer software consulting commodity code list of 169 vendors, which included their addresses. Staff spent considerable time looking into the first 19 companies on the list that had a Wichita address. Our thoughts were, if this is a company that's in Wichita, we might be able to have some lower travel costs. The results of our research are as follows. Several did not have a website, which is likely an indication they are too small to handle this project. On the website of several others, there was no mention of this type of service. Those companies whose websites mention that they perform consulting services, software services, computer services, most any kind of services other than hardware, we called. Some of them did not provide the type of services we need. Some had never performed this type of work before but willing to give it a try. And there were some that do provide this type of service but had never previously done so for a city. In our discussions with these vendors, some provided contact information for other vendors they thought might be able to help us. Unfortunately, those did not pan out either for similar reasons. Wichita also provided the names of 3 additional companies that do provide ERP software advisory services. However, one company did not respond to our inquiry, and the other 2 companies have previously only handled cities that are much larger in size than Park City, populations greater than 80,000. These 2 companies spoke of software such as SAP and Oracle that are not for cities of Park City size. Some staff did obtain a copy of the City of Edgerton's RFQ, but after spending a considerable amount of time researching and having discussions with vendors, we believe that it's unlikely that an RFQ process would return vendors that have experience in performing these tasks for cities that are similar in size to Park City. Due to this, staff does recommend approval of Gfoa's proposal. There were a couple things discussed during the October meeting that we would like to clarify. The first is related to the comments during the October meeting that the cost would now be $437,000. We'd like to clarify that at this time, staff is not requesting anything more than your permission to make the $300,000 transfer this year rather than next year in order that we have funds available for this contract to avoid a cash basis violation. That said, we also don't want to mislead you with this statement because we don't know how much the software will cost. If you recall, in our budget workshop, we recommended the $300,000 transfer be used toward the cost of software, and we indicated we did not know how much that cost would be. The $300,000 amount was entirely based on that being the amount of the increase in the audited unencumbered cash carryover at the end of 2020. There's certainly a possibility it may not be enough, but we don't currently know that. So as it relates to the amount of funding needed for this project, we just want to clarify that we're not requesting anything other than being able to make that $300,000 transfer now rather than waiting until January. The second thing we'd like to clarify is that GFOA's proposal does not include looking at if our staff merely needs trained on the current Encode 9 software. Only Baker Tilly's proposal included that. We have additional information that has signaled us that we're at the end of life with our current software, and so we need a new system rather than training on the existing one. Encode has expressed to our IT manager that they will no longer be updating Encode 9. They did indicate they will continue to fix issues, but we as staff would argue that because we're experiencing otherwise. We're concerned that as time goes on, the situation will get worse. Encode also told me earlier this month that our annual subscription for Encode 9 will increase 5% per year, so they obviously have no intent to reduce their subscription fees, even though they have stopped updating the software, and even though we must wrestle with them to get them to fix the issues we encounter. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Ben?
I don't have any questions specifically. I do want to say thank you for taking the time over the last 4 weeks to go through and to look through this process. I think it's important just on an issue, and I know this is something that you all are addressing already. You talked about the purchasing policy that you're working on, and I appreciate that very much. I think that's good. But I also think this is good. It's good just to show the transparency of the work that you all do as staff to make sure that you're being responsible with taxpayer dollars. I understand when you talk about the end of life with the ERP system, we faced a similar issue, or we face a similar issue still where I previously worked at. And with the ability to not update or upgrade or anything like that, but still provide support is not a good place for our city to be at. So I would, I'm in support of this. There might be others that want to talk, so I'm not going to make a motion yet, but I would be supportive.
Randy?
I just want to say thanks for going out and looking at more options out there. I guess it was mentioned last time that Wichita went out for the RFQ, and so I'm assuming that's why we reached out to RFQ to get their help, but to learn that they really did not go out for RFQ. I think with us being at the end of life of software, it's important for us to get started now rather than wait later, and I'm sorry that we had to hold it up 4 weeks to do this process. Being the member who voted against moving forward and not delaying it, I'll make a motion again to approve GFOA's master service agreement and advisory service proposal statement of work related to the purchase of ERP software, an amount not to exceed $137,500 to be paid out of the capital projects fund, and also approved a transfer of $300,000 in 2021 from the general fund to the capital projects fund for the purpose of funding the cost of the ERP software project.
Thank you, Brandy. Tom?
I'm going to second that, and I'd also like to make a comment. I think I was one of them that kind of hammered on you last time about the what I felt was inadequate support in the package. Thing you've done since then, and staff.
Thank you.
Excellent. Ben?
Yeah, I did have one other thing I remember I was going to ask you. Implementation time and such, because I know we were talking about initially when we were targeting at 2022. And 4 weeks, I understand but in talking with GFOA, there we go, sorry. Has there been any talk concerning going down this route? Is 2022 even realistic?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I did specifically ask him, since it's 4 weeks down the road now, if they would still be able to get the RFP done by the end of the year, which is, kind of for my schedule, what I needed. And he said, well, we probably can't get it done, but he said we could certainly work with you first, get your input, and then we could work with the others and keep everything on the same track to be done by the end of the year.
End of 2021 to get that out for 2022 bid, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. And
Well, the RFP would not necessarily be done by the end of 2021. My discussions would,
Yeah.
but they would have the RFP out not long after that, and then have implementation in the last quarter of 2022.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Board Caps?
Well, the companies that you've looked at that you would look at for doing this, do you have any prior experience with any of those people?
I do not. This is something, honestly, other than, I've in the past known the software myself, so I've been improving business processes all along. So that piece was kind of just part of life there. Was doing the RFP and picking the company and negotiating and all that kind of stuff. I had 2 managers that reported to me, and the 3 of us together did that when I have done this in the past. I don't have managers reporting to me now that would necessarily be able to do that, but we just wear so many hats, sure, that we just, it's.
I understand that, Dave. My big concern about these software companies is, I remember when we computerized the police department, we had problem with training. You know, I can remember an example of this guy coming up from Dallas. We paid a pretty good chunk of money for him to come up here, and he sat with a handbook in his hand next to us, and that's how he trained us, out of that handbook. Well, we paid big money for that, and I didn't think there was a need for it. And that's what I'd say. I would hope that when you go for a company, like I say, the training part of it is the part that really concerns me. Software is software, but those training, I hope we get some good references on them.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I just want to make sure we're understanding that this is not the software company. It's a company to help us find and select it, and then make sure they're doing the things they told us would be during implementation. And I'll tell you from my experience, that is a problem. They generally will try to get away with things that they can, and I've battled them all.
But that's what I was talking about, the company that's going to furnish the software. I would hope that we really get some good background on them, because that's miserable when you pay big money for somebody to train you and they sit there and read it out of a handbook. You know, I mean, that.
And I'll tell you the one thing about Gfoa is the group that does this piece, the advisory services, is a separate area of Gfoa, that's all they do. And they do this all the time. So they know which companies are good. They know which ones aren't so great. They know kind of what to watch out for. So I think that's a good plus for us.
Well, Dee, maybe I'm a dinosaur. You know, computers has come a long time since I retired. So that was some time back. But in that day and age, it was hard to get good training on this stuff. But thank you.
Good. Had good discussion on that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 8-0. Thank you for that, Dee.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item 9. Doug Mosier.
Yeah, Mr. President and Council, this is a correction of an ordinance that you adopted back in September. You may recall we had a kind of a lengthy discussion about modifying the speed limits along Broadway to reflect the construction of the roundabout at 77th Street, and then addressing some concerns of the neighborhood at Saddlebrook. This is my mistake in drafting that. I made the changes that the council suggested and that we proposed through the police department for Broadway, but I used an old form, and I, by mistake, incorporated some out-of-date speed limits on hydraulic. So what this ordinance in front of you today does is correct that and and insert in this amending ordinance the appropriate speed limits on hydraulic. Those were, by the way, modified about 4 years ago, I think, to slow traffic down a little bit. What was mistakenly put in was 45 miles an hour and then transitioning to 40 up through 61st Street. That's now 40 miles an hour coming from the south and then transitioning to 40 to 35 miles an hour through 61st Street. So I'd recommend that you adopt this amending ordinance.
Okay. Jim?
Thanks, Doug. I remember the conversation. So I would move to approve ordinance 1135-2021 and ordinance amending ordinance 1130-2021 relating to the maximum speed limits established in section 14-202 of the municipal code and repealing the original of said ordinance 1130-2021 and section 14-202.
Thank you. And I don't have a button, but I will second that. And this will be a roll call vote. Clerk?
John Lynn
Aye.
George Glover,
Aye.
Ben Salcetta,
Aye.
Melvin Kerr,
Aye.
Tom Jones, George Capps,
Aye.
Randy Bailey,
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0. All right, item 10. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, or Mr. President, council members. I want to talk to you about some equipment for the audiovisual booth back here in the back of the room. The room currently has equipment which enables the city to store the video of meetings and other content and stream the content to the internet through sites such as Facebook and YouTube. The current equipment was designed and installed by our previous IT employees, and it includes 2 tower-style personal computers, several video interface converters, and both purchased and shareware software. The current equipment and the software setup is not industry standard, but it was designed and assembled at a low cost by the previous employees in order to allow the city to stream content. So just to make it clear, it's not a criticism at all of what was done in the past. It was a step ahead for us, but it was done at a low cost. A couple of problems exist with the current system. 2 personal computers that are being used are older and need to be updated, and if they fail at any time, they could fail at any time due to their age. The software on them might be lost if they crash, and some of it may not be available any longer. And if it is, it may have to be repurchased because we may not have the license keys for those. Because the system's not a standard design, neither our current IT manager nor personnel from local audiovisual companies know exactly how to repair it or recreate it if and when a failure occurs. Finally, we've experienced glitches with the system which have adversely affected our ability to stream content on the internet, and these problems indicate that the system may be a complete failure. In fact, this evening, I'll share a personal story. I came in and tried to give Matt a picture of this equipment, and he put the USB drive in one of those computers and it locked up. And he had to restart it, which normally takes, and that was just probably 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting. And it's been taking like 15, 20 minutes for that to restart. So we didn't even know if it was going to be available for this meeting. I didn't do that on purpose as an illustration. That actually happened this evening. We obtained 2 quotes from local audiovisual companies to purchase and install industry standard streaming and recording equipment that is available, that's compatible with our current AV system. We were only able to identify 2 local companies that do this type of service and offer this type of equipment, so a 3rd quote was not obtained. We have had previous experience dealing with both of the companies that submitted quotes. McClellan Incorporated submitted a quote of $9,735, which includes a 12-month warranty for materials and labor. Conference Technologies Incorporated, or CTI, submitted a quote for $9,568, which also includes a 12-month warranty for materials and labor. CTI also included quotes for their extended service and maintenance contract for various lengths of time. 2 years additional, so it'd be a 3 years total, in other words, for $784.97, and an additional 4 years for $1,569.93. These agreements also include periodic tests and regular maintenance. That's something that McClellan did not offer. So that's some additional value. My recommendation, based on the quotes and the equipment, would be to purchase the equipment that's was quoted to us by Conference Technologies Incorporated. Excuse me, if I might say, I'm not always in favor of extended warranties, but in this case, looking at the cost of this equipment, even considering we had a power glitch here just 2 or 3 months ago in this building, we lost some of the equipment in this room behind me as a result of that. So I would really recommend, and also it's specialized knowledge that these companies have. It's beyond just computer knowledge. So I would highly recommend going with the additional warranty. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. George?
Yeah, Chief, I've had a couple concerns about audio on Facebook and YouTube with our council meetings. some of the residents are saying they can't hear, they've got it turned all the way up. I don't know if this will help alleviate that.
It's, again, what we have currently, the system we have, not being critical of it, but it's something that was put together that works. And it served us, I think, pretty well considering what it is. But the volume, that's in the audio, that's one of the issues. We're not using something that was really purpose designed and built, for what it's doing. And so the audio would be able to be better controlled by the equipment that's quoted, because this is equipment that's actually designed to do this. So they have audio mixing capability and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
I think one other thing you could look at is a possibility of changing the microphones, but there's some issues with that as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Okay, I will make a motion to approve the purchase of audiovisual streaming equipment and a 4-year service agreement from Conference Technologies for a total amount of $11,137.93 to be paid out of the general fund governing body department. Jim?
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to item 11. City Administrator?
Yes, sir, if I may, I have some things to hand out here.
Yes, please. Thank you. Whoops, sorry.
The handout I just gave provides some updated numbers as things have changed over the last month since this was originally prepared. The American Rescue Plan, ARPA, was signed into law in March of 2021. It provides relief to local governments to combat the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the ARPA eligible uses is providing premium pay to workers performing essential work during the pandemic. Staff was asked to research and make recommendations for your consideration. ARPA defines premium pay as an amount up to $13 per hour in addition to wages workers otherwise would receive. It is limited to an aggregate amount not to exceed $25,000 per worker and requires written justification should it exceed the worker's total pay above 150% of the state or the county's average annual wage. For the state of Kansas, that's $48,610 a year. For Sedgwick County, it's $55,880, whichever is higher. It is encouraged to provide retrospective pay where possible for work performed since the start of the public health emergency as far back as January 27, 2020. Sedgwick County recently approved 15% of their ARPA allowed funds for premium pay and then increased that to 20% to pay premium pay to their employees based on a tier system. Whereas Tier 1A had direct contact with the public for a majority of their work, Tier 1B had direct contact with the public in differing aspects of their job, and Tier 2A had indirect contact with the public. For Sedgwick County, Tier 1A received an additional $12 an hour, Tier 1B received an additional $10 per hour, and Tier 2A received an additional $6 per hour. Regardless of the authorized additional amounts, Sedgwick County limited to where no employee would receive more than $10,000. The eligible time period premium pay that Sedgwick County approved from was March 2020 to March of 2021, inclusive for 13 months. Switching over to Park City was awarded $1,177,850.09 in ARPA funds. Using Sedgwick County strictly as a guideline, what they had proposed for theirs, 15% equals $176,678. Between March 2020 and March 2021, 13 months inclusive, there are 42 employees overall, but 52 employees when you count seasonal and part-time help that are still employed with the city. Assuming all employees are viewed equally, regardless of job, function, or contact with the public, premium pay, and that's where this new chart comes into play. I have presented 3 or 4 different options, and this is strictly for council's consideration. There is no recommendation of any way to go. If council were wanting to issue premium pay for current employees only, 2 options are to do it, one from March 2020 to March 21, the 13 months inclusive. That includes a total of 52 employees. The monthly allocation would be $400.18. The lowest paycheck or check that would be issued to an employee would be for 1 month's service during that time period, and it would be $400.18. The highest would be $5,202.30. Another option to consider is, seeing how the Delta variant of the COVID pandemic is still ongoing, council could elect to go from March of 2020 all the way to current day. We still have the same 52 employees, that just reduces the monthly allocation to $238.59. The lowest payout would be $119.30, and the highest would be $4,771.86. The second option that is presented before council at this time period is to do premium pay for current employees and 3 retirees that we had that were employed during the pandemic. If council elects to go that way, the number of employees increases to 55. The monthly allocation drops approximately $23 per month. The lowest payout would be for 1 month, which would be $367.70. The highest would be $4,780.05. And again, if council wanted to extend that to current day because of the Delta variant, the monthly allocation drops down to $222.66. The lowest payout would be $111.33. The highest would be $4,453.13. It is important to understand that as far as this calculations, part-time employees were calculated at 50%, and seasonal employees were calculated at 3 months per year, usually during the summer months. As far as the fiscal impact, this is unbudgeted. And although federal support in helping local municipalities combat and endure this pandemic is greatly appreciated, the use of ARPA funding for premium pay requires very meticulous documentation and excessively stringent guidelines and restrictions that may limit or prevent some of the employees from qualifying for ARPA premium pay. If approved, staff recommends utilizing cities' unencumbered reserves or individual department funds payroll accounts for premium pay disbursements, and then reserving the ARPA funding for a much larger scale future infrastructure project to be determined at a later date. That's all I have, sir.
Ben.
So I have a couple things here. One, I am extremely excited to see this on the agenda, as this is something that I have been involved with working with you and staff on since midsummer. And so I am glad to see this on here. I think our employees have done a phenomenal job. And not just during this time, they do a phenomenal job all the time. But recognizing this, I think, is important. Do we know, or have we reached out to any employees concerning, I know that when the county did this, one of the concerns was this bump in pay, if you will, because it really is a pay portion, has sometimes an effect on if they are receiving any sort of federal or state benefits, aid benefits, and sometimes bumps them out of categories on that. I don't know if we've looked into that or not, or asked.
No, sir, we have not. About the only one that we reached out to question was, we did contact Capers.
Okay.
Because with 3 recently retired employees, we did not know whether that would have a financial impact on their retirement. And Capers indicated that it would not, that they would be eligible if the council makes that approval. So.
Okay. I think and I'm sure that that's something HR can have a conversation with employees, because I know that was an issue with current employees receiving that. And now, granted, that was a larger number, but the second part was seasonal employees, and I don't want to open up a can of worms here on this, but seasonal employees, Are they still considered employed with us off-season?
Yes, sir, they are still employees.
Okay, perfect.
And that's why we went ahead and included them. Primarily, the seasonal employees that we have right now are with Public Works Department. And like I said, they generally, that's, for trying to maintain consistency and standardization throughout, we just said, hey, they work 3 months throughout the summer months. So it's appropriate to, throughout that time period.
Sure, they're just, and it's seasonal, that makes sense. I am in favor, and I do intend to make a motion on this. I am in favor of the March 20 to March 2021 for the current employees. The reason being that for that time period, I know you talked about the Delta variant and such, being that this is a one-time deal and we are, I think that sets a definite time period and time frame to this. If we say, well, we're going to go to November of 2021 because the Delta variant is still active, being that we're dealing with a still active situation, we don't have to do anything. I understand as the council we can make set our prerogatives on that. I just feel that that would be something that, 5 months from now, if the Delta variant's still going on, we could come back and say, well, let's do this again, or we need to do this again because it's still an active thing. I like following the county's guidelines that they set on there, not that we have to follow them exactly, but if we're using that basis for all of our other information, I think it's adequate to follow that in terms of the time frame in which we use. And so with that, and I know there's going to be other discussion, and so if this motion doesn't go anywhere, that's fine, I understand, but I am going to make a motion to approve, and let me get the wording, I want to be able to get the wording right on this, to approve premium pay for all employees based upon the March 20 to March 21 monthly pro rata basis. Is that adequate, Doug?
I think Sean probably needs to answer that.
Okay, that would be my motion.
Correct.
Okay, Brandy,
Sean,
you want a second for discussion?
no, not yet.
Okay, I'll
I
second
want a
it.
discussion.
I'll second it, go ahead.
I have a question. What does monthly allocation mean? Are we not given a lump sum, or are we paying it out monthly?
No, ma'am. We would be giving out a lump sum. It's just as we were sitting here trying to figure out how do you equitably divide the total amount, we just figured out that we have 52 employees, and if all 52 employees worked all 13 months inclusive, then it'd be 52 times 13, divide the total amount eligible by that, and that's a monthly, so that way we could put it in a spreadsheet and calculate. So that way we knew if you worked 8 months, it was
okay.
just for spreadsheet purposes only.
Okay, and then when it's lowest, when it says lowest, that's the lowest amount that any person would get.
That is correct. That would be more than likely for an individual that was here only one of those 13 months.
Okay, and then the highest is
Would be somebody that was here throughout the whole.
we're gonna pay out to any one individual. And then when it goes from March 2020 to November 2021, how come that number goes down? That doesn't make sense to me.
More employees.
You have more months, so it's a lower share, and you have actually some more employees, because now you're reaching back and saying, how many employees did we have over a, what is that, 21-month period, 20-month period.
But the highest paycheck goes down, though? Shouldn't the
ma'am.
highest paycheck go up?
All of them do.
No, ma'am, there's more employees involved.
We're dealing with the
How's there more employees involved when there's
More
50?
months, I should say.
You got the same dollars, and you're just dividing it by more people.
More months.
The base is the same.
So that number, Brandy, on the very bottom, 176,678, that's the total amount, and then it divides by the number of employees in months.
And the months, yeah.
And the months.
So because it's a longer period, someone's gonna get paid less than if we did the shorter period.
No, because the money goes from 12 months to the 18 months or whatever it is. You're paying a longer period of time, so it's drawn out further.
Okay. Okay,
You good, Brandy?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Tom?
That hasn't been seconded yet, has it?
I seconded it.
Oh, well, I would like to see us go to the second period and include the employees that worked, that retired during that time frame.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Jim?
A couple things. One, and yeah, I think I'm with Tom. It makes sense to include the retirees. They worked. It also would make sense, to be most fair, to include them somehow on their pro rata share of the months they actually worked. If they retired in the first month of this time period, they shouldn't get as much as somebody that worked all the way through it. But I know that makes the math real fuzzy.
No, sir, and that's the way the spreadsheet was calculated.
It was.
If an employee worked starting March of 2020 and retired 4 months later, then they would be getting 4 months worth of the. So
Okay.
It's all predicated on that 13-month time period, the number of months that they were actually employed by the city.
Okay. Okay, perfect, thank you. And so my opinions may be more to include the retirees, and the other comments just to say this seems really generous and would be a good thing for the employees. I know I was considered a critical employee or whatever per the COVID rules, and I worked every day and didn't get time off, and I got an extra day of vacation, but I sure didn't get any checks. So, and I'm not complaining about that. It's just, this seems like a really nice thing to do. But for comparison, that's where, just to share the story.
Thank you. George Capps?
Is this going to go by position or by individual employees? I ask that because I would worry about morale, because I understand that this would fall under Cora. And I have seen times when the newspaper come up and ask for those funds and then publish them in the newspaper. And that's why I was asking.
Sir, every employee, regardless of position, would be paid according to the monthly allocation. So if they work 13 months, it does not matter what their job function or position is, they would receive the same amount.
That's good.
Yes, sir.
That would be good for morale.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ben?
And I'm open to the thought there as far as including our retirees. And if I understand correctly, all three of our retirees would fall under the full time frame. Is that all? I think all of them are post March 2021.
I do not believe so, sir.
Okay. Okay. And I don't want to get too far into that, for obvious reasons, but I would be open to that. I do want to make one clarification point too as well. I think that is very important. And that is, even though council is considered employees, council is not subject to receiving this money, and I have no problem with that. I think that's the way it ought to be. But in the event that that was ever a question, I think it needs to be very clear that council does not receive any of this hazard or premium pay. So if there's more entertainment for that, I would, for extending that, I would be willing to amend my motion.
Okay. Brandy?
What's the time period at looking at paying this out?
If council authorizes and approves it tonight, then we can have it paid out here within the next, it would be more than likely ran as a separate payroll to avoid tax implications for individual employees, but here within the next week, 2 weeks.
Okay.
Melvin?
This here includes employees and retirees, but it don't include the people that are quit or dismissed or anything like that, that has worked through that pandemic time, the 2020 March to 2021 March?
That is correct, sir. It does not at this time include it.
Okay. I wouldn't be in favor of this then. I think they should be included in that, because they're the ones that took the risk at the time too.
Okay. I'll just weigh in too, since I feel like, in my opinion, when someone retires, you know, they contact capers, they find their final numbers of what they're gonna be paid. And we even pay them for their sick leave, we pay them for their vacation leave that's remaining. And they know the number that they have when they leave, when they walk out the door. To me, adding retirees on here, you're actually the highest amount for someone that worked the entire duration of the 12 months. You're cutting their check about $500 per each person that is on the max end by including someone that retired, cashed out their vacation, cashed out their sick leave. And you know, the other thing I'll remind is we're not paying this out of ARPA funds. We're following the ARPA guidelines, but this is tax money. This is citizens' money. And even if we were, ARPA money is tax money. I mean, it's money that the government sent out that guess who's gonna pay that back? I mean, this is the tax-paying citizens that are paying this money. So I just wanna keep that in perspective that by adding people onto this who cashed out and walked away and knew what they're getting, we're taking up to around $500 out of current existing employees. They're gonna have to continue to work through this. I mean, we still have COVID. I mean, it's still out there. So just remember that, because this could be the only one we do. Okay? Brandy.
Well, that's what I was gonna bring up, was that this isn't getting paid out of ARPA money, this is getting paid out of the payroll funds, and then we'll use ARPA money for a bigger project. I'm also not in favor of paying the retirees, just for the reasonings that John had mentioned. And then I'm not in favor of paying people that are no longer here. I mean, they quit. They quit for one reason or the other, or they were let go for one reason or another. I think we need to just take care of the employees that are still currently our employees.
Ben.
I will say, and this is my, again, to kind of what John even just stated, as far as my hesitancy towards retirees, or even non-employees, whether they quit or whatever the case might be. And I feel like I'm just repeating like what my life is outside of here. But I was a county employee when this was passed by the county, and they set out specific rules as far as what were the requirements. I did receive the first half, that's public record, so I don't mind telling you that. But because I am not employed when the second half is paid, I don't get the money. And it doesn't matter that I worked through it or I didn't work through it. I don't get paid. And so I can understand the plight, but at the same point, I also believe that, you know, there's a system in place and for the sake of, I mean, part of doing this is a morale issue as well. We're wanting to make sure that our current employees know that they are cared for and supported by the council. You know, this has been in discussion, you know, and I don't know numbers specifically. I'm not going to get too far into that, but you know, we've talked about this publicly at least for about 2 months now, and it's been there. And I don't know the number of employees in the last 2 months that have either left or whatever the case might be, but they've also understood that this has kind of been talked about and could be coming. And to some degree, if it had been if that would have been a retention factor for them, then they might still be here. I don't know. So I just don't like going back necessarily, and it's for those reasons there. Again, I'm not a retiree from the county, but as no longer employed by the county, I'm not getting that money, even though that was budgeted with me being there in mind, so.
Tom.
We're talking about March of 2020 to March of 2021.
Yes, sir.
And that is the basis of the whole fact of we're going to pay this is because that was the worst time. Those 3 people that were gone that are retired, I think a couple of them worked all that year. So they were here all that time, and they were meeting the public, or they were out in the public doing the job. And we're going to say now they didn't deserve it? So I know they've retired, and they worked during that time period, and I think we ought to support them and pay it, so.
George Capps.
Well, I think they used to call this hazardous duty pay. Didn't make any difference whether you was retired, you quit, or what. It was hazardous duty pay. You go out there, you work, you subject yourself to catching this stuff, in the public, and that was the idea of the federal government putting this money out, was for people who had the guts to go out and work. Some people wouldn't do it. Some people just stayed at home. But those that came out and worked, that's what that money is for. It's hazardous duty pay. You can call it whatever you want, but some of them call it hero pay. But whatever.
Ben?
Sure. And we can keep discussing this or debating this, and I think that's fine. I would like to call the question, just simply so we can vote. And if there's enough of us that say, no, we want to go back, then let's go back and do that. But I would like to call the question on the motion at hand. And if we decide that we want to include as part of this, going back and redoing an amendment or a motion, I'm fine with that too.
But before you do that, just because I don't have a button and I kind of got skipped the second time, but I just want us to also say that employees who left, whether it was termination, retirement, or they resigned and went to another job, they could have another job and have got this pay from them too. So just remember that. Also, I want to remember too that the employees that are here now still picked up the weight, and if you guys all know we're short on employees right now, just like every other agency right now around. Private business, government, everybody's shorthanded. And the ones that are here now have continued to work through that whole duration. And just remember, we're taking about $500 out of the pockets of the people that are on the max side. So, Tom, or George, I'm sorry.
I wanted to know what the motion was before we voted.
I think I had before. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I picked my button off because I thought you were backing out.
You know, if you're an employee that retired and you work for a year through this stuff, and everything we say here is public record, it's out there, the newspaper might print it, it's on TV, how are you going to feel? Well, my God, they didn't appreciate me. I came up there and put myself at risk, and they just didn't appreciate me at all. And I'm not going to advocate one way or another. I'm just stating the facts of what's out there. How would you feel if you worked here for a year and was exposed to that danger, and then you left and you found out the city didn't appreciate it? How would you feel?
Excuse me, point of order.
George, you haven't talked yet.
Yeah, I want
I want to let George talk because he hasn't had a chance.
You know, all the staff here have been faced with that for the whole year. A lot of us, in lieu of COVID, have been sent home. We work from home, where the others have been, you know, fighting the good fight. They're out in whatever agencies they're at, and they're doing the actual work of the agency in-house. And I have to support them in that, because a lot of us, like I said, we given the option to stay home. Some of us, where I work, were given, most of us were not given that, but there were a few that were. So kudos go out to the workers here, the staff here that fought through this. I know some of them, they may have been subject to COVID themselves, but they fought through it. They maintained the staff level hill, and they provided the services of the citizens of Park City. And that's the thing to keep in mind, is they still maintain this city office. So I'm encouraged. I think it's something that we need to do. I think it's, again, for the morale of the staff here at Park City, it would help them. But also, as far as encouraging us as the council to support the staff here as well. Thank you.
Okay. Clerk, could you get a read back on the motion, please?
Councilmember Ben Sosetta moved to approve premium pay for all employees based on March 2020 through March 2021 pro rata basis.
Okay. All right, we've had a really good discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand.
I didn't catch the link, just employees?
Yeah, I'll go for it.
So we're 5, all opposed? 5-3. Motion passes 5-3.
I voted for it.
You needed to know who the 5 were? Let's just go around. George?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Melvin? Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
good?
No.
Okay, we're moving on to the next item. Is item 13 is an executive session for 15 minutes for, sorry. Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Item 12. Sean?
Yes, sir. In the past years, council has elected to forego the second meeting in December. The second scheduled meeting in the December time period will fall on December 28th of this year.
Okay, Counselor.
We're looking for guidance.
Guys weigh in. Do you need to know tonight on it, or is it something that if we put it for consideration now and vote it on at the next meeting, or what's your thoughts on that? You want to know now?
This is the normal time of year. It's usually the second meeting in November that council makes that decision. So that's the reason why we included it on this agenda.
Ben?
Yeah, we've done this for several years already, and, you know, if staff feels that they have the business of the city wrapped up that we need to for 2021 as we get ready to head into it, I don't see a reason to come in between Christmas and New Year's for this meeting, so I would be in favor of this, so I'd make a motion to approve the cancellation of the December 28th, 2021 regular meeting.
Jim?
I'll second that for discussion, just to hear everybody's thoughts. And my thought was that it doesn't matter, I'll be around if we need to have a meeting, but if I'm thinking right, you would have to provide packets to the council on Christmas Eve, the 24th, so that's probably a pretty good argument.
We won't.
For postponing or canceling that meeting.
Okay, so I don't think we need a ton of discussion on that. George Capps?
Well, yeah, we'll be out of town.
I agree, in between the holidays.
Throw that in there.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Now, to item 13 is an executive session for 15 minutes for personnel matter of non-elected personnel involving the governing body. Doug, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move we go into executive session for 15 minutes for non-elected personnel.
Ben?
Second for discussion. Do we need legal in for this one?
No.
Or, no? Okay, perfect. Then I'm good.
Okay. 8:08.
I'll slow, but I'll get there.
That's the timer. Cats.
What game show was
Just on
that?
time.
I don't know yet.
Okay, it's 8:24. We returned from executive session. No binding action was taken. We will move on to governing body reports, and I'll start with Jim.
Realigning my line of thinking here after that. But no, I don't have anything to add tonight, so nothing to add.
Brandy.
Have anything tonight?
Caps.
I just wish everyone a happy and peaceful Thanksgiving, a safe one.
Don't have any comment?
Well, I want to say happy Thanksgiving, and I want to say appreciate to all the people that allowed me to serve them through the years there, and
Be at the next one. Have an opportunity to do
okay, will I? Okay, so I'll scratch this. Okay, all right. Happy Thanksgiving.
Have 2 funerals.
2 funerals. All right.
Well, I'm gonna cross out all the notes I had about Melvin too then. There. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our residents and to our staff. I want to say how much, again, that you are appreciated. One of the things I am thankful for this year is, again, good health. God's kept me, and I am thankful for that, for the family that I have, for the city I get to serve, and I'm thankful for the employees. I know we talked and had this discussion tonight on premium pay, and it was a good discussion. And it should be noted that simply because one was for or against in the vote does not mean that anybody up here is anti-employees. I think you have a very supportive council that is supportive of our employees no matter what, and the discussion was healthy, and it was all centered around helping employees. It just varied on what degree we might have fallen in line with on that. So thank you to our council as well on this. But you all have a great Thanksgiving, and we will see you in December.
Councilman Glover.
Yeah, first of all, many thanks to God for sending His Son. I also want to just recognize, in lieu of the hardships we faced this year, the residents, I want to just thank you for just hanging in there and being encouraged. I know a lot of us have faced hardships this year with COVID or whatever else, maybe a job or loss of a loved one, but just hang in there. We're going to get through this. I want to encourage everyone to hold on. Also want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. If you have a neighbor, a disabled person, or just an elderly person that you know is not sharing that Thanksgiving with someone, reach out to them and just encourage them. And if you know them, invite them to come and share our thanks, our many thanks, and our many blessings this year. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I guess in my comments, I'd just like to add, I have the city administrator for our next meeting give us a status update on the status of the taxes in the Echo Hills development. We were told it would be done by December, so I'd like to know that. Also, I wanted to tell the council that the city administrator has been working on a governing body handbook that he's worked very hard on and has done very good. So I'm kind of considering for us doing in our council meetings prior to the meetings, or we can do them after. We used to do workshops, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it may be, so we can discuss different things. And if you guys are open to it, I would mind having kind of a session where we can go through the governing body handbook. This is very informative, and I think it'll answer a lot of questions about kind of how our meetings are ran, the decorum, and even stuff that doesn't necessarily relate to during a council meeting. But we'll be looking for that probably next month if we can get them all done. And then also on the next meeting, update on the status of pickleball courts. So there'll be a few more weeks ready by then, but you'll know the slab's been poured at McLean Park, so it's in process. So good job to our public works folks, they're on that. So that's all I have. Same thing on Happy Thanksgiving, and I would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
I'd second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that's non-debatable. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.